Hi everyone, this is Dave Lever with the Expert Coach, and today I have the incredible Greig Smith here with me. He's the founder of Growth Mindset Movement, and Paul is going to talk to us about, or we're going to talk about how to remain laser focused in times of overwhelm. So Paul, would you like to tell us a bit about what you do?
Okay, so I've got a couple of companies. Pretty busy straight off the bat with 3 different companies that I run. Growth Mindset Movement, I run a travel company, and also a property funding solutions company. So I'm really busy. And one of the reasons why I got into or was really interested in personal development and in ways of dealing with stress. Now here's the thing, with my travel company, on the one hand it's very glamorous kind of, traveling the world and all this kind of stuff. Yes. But also from an operational perspective, I would regularly have clients all over the world, and it's kind of like you've had to deal with everything from volcanic ash clouds to Brexit and all kinds of stuff. So I was regularly getting super stressful situations. I used to call them heart attack moments. Like, oh my God, I've lost tens of thousands of pounds or whatever it was. And having to bounce back rapidly. So I was really interested in rapidly deploying any kind of techniques which help me kind of lower stress levels and effectively bounce back. Because here's the thing, when you are hyper-stimulated, when you've got high levels of cortisol in your blood or whatever, it actually kind of like ruins your ability to focus on a biological level. Because literally your body's in fight or flight mode, it's not in focus mode. So there's a whole range of tools, tips, tactics which are immediately deployable, which can help you regain focus. But today I think I'd like to talk about the whole range of things which you can use immediately.
Great, sounds good. I think a lot of people can relate to that, and like you said, when you experience high levels of cortisol, high levels of stress, it hinders inevitably your ability to focus. And I think a lot of people out there, particularly in corporate world or business owners, they just live in constant fight or flight mode. I've most certainly been there. I've had very intense periods in my life when I've had experienced incredible stress. And boy, did I wish to have someone to tell me how to cope with that and remain laser focused, because it definitely affected my ability to focus. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know why or what was going on, or how to deal with it. So would you like to tell us a bit about the techniques? Is there anything, usually what I now know with what I know now is techniques like exercise, meditation, mindfulness. These are the main ones. That people usually talk, that my coaches usually talk about. So what would you recommend? Is there anything that you would begin with?
So these are all to be employed as a way of life, something that you do every day. It's not just like one quick fix or whatever. Yeah. So all of the things we're going to discuss are things you should incorporate into your way of life. Now, most of us, our default way of operation of turning up in the world, it might be too much coffee, you get too stressed, you drink too much or whatever, all the kind of quick fixes which over a long period of time, the long-term cumulative effects obviously aren't good. Sure. So a lot of what we're going to discuss is keystone habits, great habits, lay the foundation of these habits and the long-term effects on your overall well-being, on your focus levels. To start off with, the first one is exercise. Everything is better with exercise. Whether or not you like exercise, the cascading benefits into your life, healthy body, healthy mind, all that kind of stuff, but literally even exercise as a quick technique, if you're dealing with any kind of stress or whatever, it's like when you've been to the gym, you feel great afterwards. The flood of endorphins and all this kind of stuff, as well as oxygenating your system. And for me, I exercise in the morning. So for me, part of my routine, one is it's a good, solid, strong morning routine, and that incorporates exercise. So for me, most people start off the day, they might hit their emails straight away, they might check their social media or whatever. But actually, I even have I have an hour and a half at least, sometimes half an hour, where it's pure quiet time, pure silent time. Now, I'm sure many people would have heard of The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. It's a wonderful book. What he talks about is the acronym is SAVERS, so silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading and scribing or journaling. So that is a solid foundation of morning routine. But literally, it's like if you win. There's that saying: if you win the morning, you win the day. And for me, it's even if it's the minimum I do. There's a great app. It's called 7, which is like a 7 minutes of high intensity exercise. So that's the minimum I do. Otherwise, it can be anywhere between half an hour to an hour, and it will vary between running a high intensity exercise or whatever. There's all different kinds of things I do, but exercise is the cornerstone, keystone habit. That's also borne out by, there's a wonderful book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I highly recommend that. And literally all peak performers, all kinds of business specialists and everything, that is one habit that you do that, everything else is better. Because it's almost like you must prioritize your biological self, your physiological self. Because
it's a foundation.
Exactly. You eat crap foods, you're drinking too much, you're drinking too much coffee. Oh, why can't I focus? It's not rocket science. So building exercise and a good morning routine into your daily habit, that's one of the first main things. Yeah, for sure.
You know, I couldn't agree with you more, especially when you talk about prioritizing your physical self or your biological self, because there's a lot of talk out there now about mindsets, all these techniques, NLP and whatnot, and those are great, but if you don't take care of your physical body, you just spend too much energy. You just waste so much energy having to process all the, stuff that you eat as unhealthy for you, or dealing with bad mood just because you haven't exercised, nothing else. So take care of the basics first, and then go on to mindset and the higher level stuff. And I really like the SAVERS acronym. I actually haven't heard of that before. I came up with my own, which I try to do now every morning. I say try. I'm getting there to being consistent, and it is GEM: gratitude, exercise, meditation.
Nice.
Gratitude, as we know, raises your dopamine levels. It's absolutely incredible. Calms you down in times of stress. Exercise, like you said, the benefits are endless of that. And meditation really helps me, especially if you have a very busy brain, you have a lot of things going on in your life. I find meditation really, really helpful in the morning. I could literally see the difference when I do that and when I skip a day and I go right on the social media anymore, so you can see the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, there's a phrase which I say to myself, which helps you think about this, is whatever is in your field of focus floods your physiology. So think about it. If you are overloading your attention, whether it's with social media or your to-do list, which is just like never ending, think of the effects of that constantly running through your physiology. All these little doses of stress, fight or flight, all throughout the whole day, and it's just not good for you. So here's the thing certainly with meditation, it calms everything down. It's almost like it allows you to take more of a detached perspective and get crystal clear on what's really important to you in your life and the direction you want to go. Because there's nothing worse than being busy, and that's also the root of a lot of stress. When you've just been working, you're like, what have I actually done with today? What have I done with this one beautiful day of my life? And you've wasted it, doing crap, basically. And the other thing you touched on there about gratitude, which I love, the gratitude practice, because again, coming back to what is in your field of focus floods your physiology. When you prioritize yourself and your self-care, so imagine every morning you're doing the exercise, you're hydrating, all this kind of stuff. But before you check your email, before you rush into your to-do list, you just kind of get slow and centered and say, do you know what? I love my life. I love, my family, my friends. And then what happens? You feel good.
Yes, absolutely. Focus on what you already have.
Yeah.
We're continuously chasing something, and we're focusing on what we don't have, right? What we do have. And we all know that in theory, but we need to practice it more. Okay, so would you like to talk to us about the end of day routine?
So that
was a morning routine.
Yeah, that's the morning routine, and the importance of the end of day routine. Because also, I'll just quickly say, with the beginning of the day and the end of the day. So beginning of the day, I also like to journal as well. So gratitude in there as well, and journaling also. A couple of things. One, I like to sometimes. It's a brain dump, empty the crap out of my head, just get it out on paper, because a lot of the time I start the day with automatic negative thoughts, so I just get them out on paper. But then in terms of life priorities. You know, the worst thing I think is just endlessly being busy and delegating your dream to the end of the day, and then the end of the day you're too tired. You know, this is why we're stressed, because we're not, you know, it's like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, and that becomes a habit. You know, so you're wasting your days being busy. Whereas if you take that time in the morning, get crystal clear on what you want, and spend that time on the one thing, the legacy task, or whether it's that book you want to write, or something which is going to move the needle just a little bit in the right direction. Because when you do that, when you move your life in the right direction just a little bit, then you feel like you've had a good day. So with me, it's almost like taking aim with my attention, with my consciousness, and this helps
first thing in the morning.
This helps with your focus and your reticular activating system, which gets you laser focused on what you want to do with your life. So one, I get clear on the things I'm going to do, and so for me it's like, okay, what's the one thing? It could be, you know, an interview or whatever. What's the really important thing I need to do today? And then sure, there are loads of other things, but I don't try and overload my schedule. I mean, easier said than done, we all do this. But the more you employ a little bit of slack in your schedule, it means when something overruns or something new comes in, you don't get super stressed about it. And then with the end of day routine, it's almost like one, ending the day on a high, right, which I think is really important. But 3 things before I go to bed, it's like, just count 3 wins or 3 things you're grateful for or happy for. And with the gratitude,
that went well during the day.
Exactly, and also because some people, it's like if ever you get, you know, hedonic adaptation, you've said, oh, I'm grateful for my family every second of the day, and sometimes what I find is lowering the barrier of gratitude. So it could be something like, oh man, this coffee, I've had a great day, you know, or the sunrise this morning, oh my God, you know, or something so simple. So you end the day, again, it's just that little flood of feel-good kind of chemicals. So you do that, and also what I'd like to think is I rehearse my success or my wins for the day ahead. So I think, okay, tomorrow, what am I going to do? What's the one thing I'm focusing on tomorrow? So it's almost like this little loop. And when you get in the habit of prioritizing the few things which are going to take you towards your goal, you're aiming in the right direction in the beginning of the morning, you're taking stock at the end of the day. Ultimately, you know, everything in life compounds. You're steering your life in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So it's all about, it's taking stock. I mean, even people like Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, all these kind of people, they would do these things. But Benjamin Franklin used to say, what good shall I do this day? So it's like these journaling habits, they're good for the soul, they're good for the mind, and help you ultimately focus and de-stress as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And taking stock at the end of the day, I really like that. And that whole process keeps you on track with your goal, because otherwise we tend to get distracted in all sorts of directions. And by focusing in the beginning of the day and taking stock at the end of the day, we just make sure we stay on track. And yeah, I think all those great people that you just mentioned, this is exactly how they got to where they got to. There's another quote I love by Steve Jobs. He said, if I every day I ask myself that this was my last day on earth, would I be doing what I'm about to do today? And if the answer is no for too many days in a row, I know I have to change direction. So it's continuously checking with yourself whether you're in the right direction and setting goals to get to a higher place, to your next goal. And sometimes, as Tony Robbins says, it's a millimeter change. So like,
exactly.
All it takes is a millimeter change sometimes. It doesn't always take a massive amount of a massive breakthrough or a massive change. Sometimes just a millimeter change.
And that's it. I mean, it's even like, you know, let's say a plane going from New York to London or whatever. Those tiny little changes are actually going to ultimately, those little course corrections will ultimately help confirm your arrival at your direction. Because again, I'm a big believer that everything in life is cumulative. So it's making sure that we all get one life. It's making sure that it's make it count with your day. Because I think at the root of a lot of stress is, we think, are we on track? Are we kind of living our lives in alignment with what we really want?
Yeah, very, very true. So Paul, do you have any advice for people who have lost track. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was exactly in that place. I was in self-checking with myself, and I woke up one day literally, and I was like, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
So if you do these morning and evening routines and processes throughout the day, great. So do you have any advice for people who have lost direction? How do you bounce back?
Yeah, because so there's a couple of different aspects to that question there.
Okay.
So some people say, oh, I don't know my purpose, I don't know, well, that's fine. Find it. You'll gradually find it. And for me,
take
it's
your time to find it
take
as
your
well.
time. And I also think,
things.
yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to listen to your physiology. It's a great barometer which helps you steer your life in the direction that you want to go. For me, it's all about slowing things down, because we all live super busy lives, information overwhelm and all this kind of stuff. And actually, it's quiet time where it's almost like you're kind of, your soul is trying to speak to you, you just got to listen for it. And for me, actually, time in nature. I have a travel company. I specialise in wildlife tours and all this kind of stuff. And I kid you not, time in nature, walking in the forest. The Japanese call it, forest bathing. There's a Japanese term for it as well. The long-term benefits to your health are well known. Walking along the beach, looking out across the ocean. Go and stare up at the night sky, even go and stare at some clouds or whatever. I guarantee you, it is the best psychic screen wash that you'll ever get. So for me, it's not just being busy, and you don't have to kind of be on all the time. I know that's kind of the way we're conditioned in our modern culture.
Absolutely.
But it's almost like
work.
It's kind of you need to slow things down, and so for me, nature is one of the main things. And also, when you mentioned bounce back techniques, there are a range of techniques you can employ. Let's say you're super stressed or whatever. There's a couple of techniques you can do immediately to lower stress levels.
Okay.
One is meditation, as we've discussed, and it's not necessarily some kind of like hippie woo-woo stuff or whatever. It's just simply a way to calm the mind, calm the nervous system and all that kind of stuff. There are apps, Calm, Headspace. Otherwise, go on YouTube, Sam Harris guided meditation, Tara Brach, really good ones.
Jason Stevenson, I discovered recently, absolutely love it.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah. So those are really good ones. Another one is something called box breathing, which I'm a big fan of now. Box
Sounds
breathing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a technique of breathing similar to Vinyasa yoga kind of breathing techniques. Just Google it, box breathing. Super simple, and you can do it in like 5 minutes, and it drops your kind of stress levels immediately. It's used by special forces in the middle of firefights to calm down their physiology. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for your average kind of person, basically.
How does that work? Do you want to?
So one example is kind of like so breathe in, and then you hold that for 5 seconds, and then you breathe out, and then you hold the out breath for 5 seconds. But you just do that cycle for like 5 minutes, and you just feel really calm at the end of it. So that's a really good one, which I highly recommend.
Breathing is really important. In fact, now that you mention it, I've had a few similar techniques. You breathe in, you exhale up to the middle, more or less, and then you hold again and keep exhaling. So there's a few different ones around that. Probably this part of the same package, so to speak.
And if you're unsure of how to do it, there are apps which just tell you.
Yes.
You can just those are the easiest ways of doing it. That's what I find.
Absolutely. So how about, this is an interesting topic, I think a lot of us struggle with. How about self-talk?
Okay.
What should we talk about when we talk to ourselves, which we all do all the time?
I love this one. Now, actually, we've all got the negative voice inside of our head.
Critic.
Most of the time, there's T. Harv Eker says, don't believe a thought you think. That's a great way of thinking, because we're actually our own worst critic. Now think about that. What other organisms in nature have like some kind of inner argument going on inside their heads. Oh, you're rubbish. Why do you always do that? Why does it bad? And you're like, we need to kind of learn how to kind of talk to ourselves. And actually, there's a wonderful book by a leading sports psychologist coach called Jim Lure, if I pronounce his name correctly. And he was talking about, he was studying peak performance in champion athletes and so on. I found this intriguing because what he noticed was it was the way these athletes, it was their inner game, it was the way they spoke to themselves inside their own heads that caused them to either bounce back or to kind of go on a negative spiral. And it was those people who, let's say for example, if things start going bad in their game or in life, that's when the negative voices start coming, and it was the people who say, why does this always have to happen to me? Why does all the bad stuff happen to me? And then they go on a negative spiral, and that affects their behaviour. So it's like this kind of neurological, biological feedback loop, which goes on.
To find the answer.
And some people get trapped in this their whole life, oh, why does bad stuff happen to me, boo-hoo? And they start asking terrible questions. Yeah. And the thing about questions, they're kind of like, ask a better question, why does crap stuff happen to me is a rubbish question.
Yes, questions are the answer. And if you answer a
exactly.
question, you might have to find the answer. Why does it always happen to me? Because you're an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. If you say, why am I an idiot? Yes. Your brain will come up with 10 reasons why you're an idiot.
What is a good question then? Do you have an example of a very good question to bounce back, to reverse that negative spiral? Okay, so there's a couple of things you can do. Something like, how do I get through this? What's the best way to get through this? Am I feeling like this because I'm crap? Or is it because I'm just simply, I haven't had enough sleep, or I need to hydrate or whatever? So again, it comes back to prioritizing, I call it primary system 1, yourself, your biological self, the physiological self, because a lot of the times, poor performance and negative feelings, it's often because we're tired, we're dehydrated, or whatever. And the thing about focus, it requires a lot of mental energy. And so we can only maintain high periods of focus for a certain time. And then we need to recoup, replenish, rejuvenate, eat, hydrate, and all this kind of stuff. And interestingly, going back to the sports psychologist there, what he was talking about was top athletes, they prioritize the downtime, the recuperating time, as much as their game time. Whereas think of your average kind of person in today's world, it's just like constant go, constant work, constant coffee, drinking at weekends or whatever. Where's the off time? And we feel guilty for the off time. But actually, to give you an example, I was at a meeting in Mayfair. There's a company called Strategic Coach. And there were all these kind of like millionaires and all this kind of stuff in the room. And I kind of felt like the stupidest person in the room. But they were talking about, I kid you not, the number of entrepreneurs who were there who said they went from periods of high stress, overwhelm, businesses were falling apart and all this kind of stuff. And then they kind of started incorporating these strategies used by this company called Strategic Coach. And one of those is, imagine breaking your week down to focus days, and if you're an athlete or something, it's like a time you have to be on. Or if you're an entrepreneur, it's like maybe it's an event or a sales event or something like that. That's when you full focus, you've got to be on form. A buffer day, that's kind of like dealing with admin and everything else you need to deal with. And then there's off days, and an off day is an off day. There's no work, you just kind of, you go and do all the stuff you like. And here's the thing as well, it's like, we're all so driven and want to move our lives ahead, but actually the stuff of life, it's what Tony Robbins says, science of success and the art of fulfillment. And that's the tough thing that so many of us struggle with, is the art of fulfillment. We feel guilty taking time off and all this kind of stuff, but actually time with family, time with friends, doing the fun stuff, actually it's the perfect antidote to all the stress. There was one example of in this book about
peak performance, there was a boxer, and one of his preferred methods was just like watching comedy reels and like just laughing. He would train so intensely and fight so intensely, and then the counterbalance was his time with family and watching kind of comedy videos. But it's the ability to switch off, because ultimately it's all about energy. Everything is energy. And if you think of it in terms of like almost like a if you're constantly putting energy out, you've got to kind of replenish the balance.
Absolutely. And
so many of us don't, and I speak to so many entrepreneur friends, and it's only when they become ill that the body says no, you're having a break, you need to stop, you need to slow down. And so people to have this kind of cycle of just like on until they're forced, when the body just says no. And we've all had that. And there's a wonderful quote by it's Vince Lombardi, which says, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." And how often have we had that in our own lives? When you're tired, when your energy levels are gone, you can't do anything.
Absolutely.
Even decision fatigue is a thing. You're like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know.
I've reached my limit of decisions.
Literally, you're out of energy, and that's when you need to kind of refuel,
replenish your energy. Absolutely agree with you. And we're not used to looking for that balance, because we are told we need to constantly be on the go. But actually, it's in the off time, like you said, where we replenish and we're even more effective and driven in achieving whatever it is that we want to achieve. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with us, Paul?
Okay, so a couple of things. One, I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy. If you're thinking what is Stoic philosophy, it's the kind of it's not some.
I'm thinking yes.
It's not this kind of esoteric why are we here philosophy. It is a realistic, nitty gritty, like how to live a good life, how to kind of take control and take ownership of what is in your control. So that is what you think and do and say in this life. That's within your control. You can't control what is externals, what other people think about you and all this kind of stuff. So don't waste energy thinking about that. It's like you focus on what you can kind of deal with. And actually, when you kind of start reading about Stoic philosophy, I mean, people like Marcus Aurelius, who was like one of the most powerful emperors in Rome, to Seneca and all these other kind of people. There was even some Stoic philosophers who were slaves or whatever. So it's about dealing with tough situations, and I kid you not, when you read it now, it's so as relevant for modern times as it's ever been. And it's a philosophy of choice for peak performers, entrepreneurs, the military, all this kind of stuff. Why? Because it helps get you laser focused on what really matters, what's in your control and what's not in your control. And I think we all need help with that. So for me, there's a couple of things. One is a book called Daily Stoic, where you just read one page a day. And even for me, I also regularly read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And that was, so here's a guy, effectively, he was like ruler of the known world. He had like civil wars, assassination attempts, like coup attempts, all kinds of stuff. So the man had a lot on his plate. But he was actually widely acknowledged as also a just ruler. And his meditations, it was his journal to himself on how to be a good man, how to live a good life, and how to improve and all this kind of stuff. And so I highly recommend that. But there's a phrase, there's a couple of phrases. One, amor fati, which is to love one's fate, right? Learn to love everything in your life, right? And you may be saying, but all this bad stuff, blah blah blah. Do you know what? The fact that you are alive, that is a gift. That is, and it's also like we've all got first world problems, right? I can't afford to keep up the payments on my car. Boo-hoo, first world problem. It's like, get over it, right? So amor fati is like, it's just like to learn to love the struggle. And there's a similar phrase, which is anti-fragile, which is by Nassim Taleb, who came up with this phrase. So the phrase anti-fragile it's almost like, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger type thing, apart from bear attacks or tiger attacks. That's just going to ruin your day or whatever, right? But so anti-fragile is no matter what happens to you, you kind of take something from it. There's a phrase I like to use, which is kind of like flip it and ship it. It's just like, don't moan, don't complain, just get on with it. If you've had a bad life or whatever. Okay, what is the seed of benefit in that situation? I know it's tough and it can be really hard, and you say, well, how on earth can this terrible situation, what good can possibly come from it? But let's say, for example, there are people who go on to, they've had terrible things happen to them, but they go on to do things like campaign for good causes, and they turn that pain
into an opportunity.
Exactly, right. Exactly. So amor fati, that's one. What other ones are there? Carpe diem, seize the day, amor fati. What else? The obstacle is the way. I love that one. Mm-hmm. That's a Stoic one as well. So that is, it's almost like whatever challenge, whatever problem you are facing, that's almost like a kind of, it's a bit of, there's a gift. There's an opportunity to learn. And again, if you start asking that question, how can I turn this into, how can I turn it around?
Good. Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example for George Michael. Whenever he had bad things happen to him, Sony trying to kind of strangle him in the contract and all this kind of stuff, he wrote an amazing song about it, Freedom, right? or when he was very publicly outed and shamed and all this kind of stuff, he wrote a song about it, and everyone loved him even more for it. So it's kind of like, just flip it, ship it. After all, we're only here for one innings, so it's like make the best of it, And if you don't see the good that is within your life, then the fault lies with you, I think. So.
And I think sometimes, I absolutely agree with you. I recently came across this phrase, see the opportunity in everything, not just a solution to the problem, but actually an opportunity to turn it around, to turn it into something positive. And I absolutely love this. And I experienced it very recently, and it was only afterwards that I realized what the opportunity actually was. And I think sometimes we don't see it immediately, but you have to trust the process. You have to trust that any obstacle to experience will probably lead you to something better. And then and look for the opportunities, look for the positive, look for how to turn the situation around, like you said. Okay.
Yeah. No. And actually, just kind of end with that. I mean, if you think of every hero, everyone who's ever inspired you, anyone who's kind of achieved anything great in their life, it wasn't just like, oh, so and so succeeded, the end.
Yes.
No,
that's a boring story.
It's a boring story. It is a story of struggle, of setback, and all these personal problems.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they succeed in the long term. And here's the thing: do you know what? No one wants to hear you complain. That's a tough kind of fact to kind of deal with. But no one does. But let me tell you something: your struggle, everyone wants to hear your success story. Literally, and that is the human thing. It's to transcend whatever is in your path, and then you share that with other people. Let that be your kind of gift to the world, as it were. But yeah, all these things, it comes back to your focus. It comes down to making sure you're at least headed in the right direction in your life. But it comes down to the basics, which is exercise, rest, and all these other kind of things. Because when you're just hyper stimulated and you haven't even got space to think, then you make all kinds of bad decisions. So it's almost like slowing things down and just listening to your body and just subtle course corrections along the way.
It's giving yourself a chance to notice things, right? Paying attention to things and not just doing, but actually being and noticing, paying attention again.
Yeah.
And again, physiology, like you said, or your biological self, is the basis of everything. Yeah. And then it's looking in the right direction, having the right focus, and even if you are going through a tough time, knowing that something good will come out of it.
Yeah.
And like you said, and that's great, people want to hear about your struggle and how you overcame it. And it's incredible. I find that so many more people than we think actually want to hear about our struggles and our success stories and can benefit from it. We think we're the only ones in the world with anything we experience, any tough time we go through. But cannot be further from the truth. There are a lot of people out there with very similar stories, and just sharing what we've been through can potentially impact so many more and help
100%.
So many people.
And so literally, whatever it is you're going through or whatever, if there's some way that your experience, your insights, if that can help anyone, then here's the thing: when you switch from being focused on yourself and just going, oh, boo-hoo, my problems and all this kind of stuff. When you switch to almost like service and using your skills, your insights to help other people, do you know what? That feels good. It feels fulfilling. And actually, there's something else. I just want to kind of add. again, this comes from Stoicism. It's get active in your own rescue. Because, yeah, again, no one's coming to save you, right? But when you realise that all these little tweaks along the way, they compound over time. You know, the good stuff. If you want to write that book, page a day, whatever. The good stuff compounds, as does the negative stuff. So if you almost view your life like as a process of, okay, I am gradually getting rid of all those the negative habits and trying to evolve past those, and gradually doing more of the kind of stuff which compounds in the right direction. And that also comes from not overloading your attention. It's getting crystal clear. And Warren Buffett says, him and Bill Gates were asked what is the secret of their success. They both answered at the same time, focus. And Warren Buffett said, okay, whatever it is you want to do in life, pick the top 25 and then get rid of the bottom 20 and just focus on the top 5. And then direct all your energy and attention in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something else as well I want to tell when we talk about struggles and sharing success stories. That's something we talk about just before this interview. We sometimes think that we are not yet where we want to be, and therefore we're not capable of helping or others or sharing our struggles, etc. But we grow along the way, and we can always help the people that are not where we are yet. So we might not be on a point 10 of where we want to be out of 1 to 10, but we're in a 4, and we can help those people who are 3 or below, you know. So you can always learn from experiences and help others with similar struggles that they're going through.
That's a really good point, actually. And even if you think of it this way, it's like we're all on our own journey. We're all on our own path. But at any given point in your life, there will be people ahead of you, you know, and you can look to those people as mentors, and there'll be people, you know, your peers on the same level, and there'll also be people below you. This is what life is all about. And as you go through these various stages in life, you know, always look to the mentors so you can improve your learning and kind of level up your circle as well, but always kind of give a helping hand to anyone else who needs it as well.
Absolutely, because you always have something to give on our journey.
But yeah, I think we've covered a hell of a lot of stuff.
Have a lot to learn, you guys, and a lot of useful information as well. A lot of useful books you mentioned along the way. Thank you so much, Paul. That was really, really good. I really appreciate your time today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Cool.